You know that cozy, relaxing feeling you get at a lovely outdoor area? Maybe at a beautiful resort? The glowing lights, the warm evening atmosphere, the feeling that you never want to leave? Well, what if I told you you could create that same vibe right at home and on a budget using thrifted finds, DIY projects, salvage materials, dollar store decor, and clearance treasures? Because, believe it or not, this beautiful resort-style patio started out as this empty space attached to the side of my shed. Now, the area itself is actually pretty spacious, but it's also plain empty and a little neglected. The river rock stone floor was full of texture and character, but definitely showing its age with cracked mortar and uneven areas throughout. The patio is surrounded by this old rustic stockyard fence, which absolutely has the potential to become a warm and charming feature. However, when it's paired with things like this sad little single exposed bulb light fixture and faded and tired peeling paint on the shed, and that one dusty old aluminum single pane window, the whole space feels less like rustic charm and more like tear it all down and haul it off to the dump. But when designing spaces, especially if your intention is sleek and sophisticated with a little rustic flair, one of the biggest tricks is knowing what to preserve and what to, let's say, refine. So the first thing that needed a little refining was definitely that sad little exposed bulb light fixture, which was easily remedied with a quick trip to the Restore. They have a great selection of ceiling fans, both used and brand new in the box, and I ended up finding this one, which my wonderful daughter installed for me. Next, I gave the shed a fresh coat of paint in this beautiful sage green shade, and freshened up the window trim too. Then came the storage situation. Shortly after moving in, I realized I desperately needed more storage space, and I found these fantastic outdoor storage cabinets on Amazon at a really great price. Sadly, these exact ones are no longer available, but I did find some very similar budget-friendly options on Wayfair. And actually, I cannot recommend outdoor cabinets like these enough. Not only do they provide tons of hidden storage for everything from gardening supplies to entertaining essentials, but they also double as sleek, furniture-style pieces that make the patio feel far more finished and intentional. And then once the new fan, fresh paint, clean window trim, and cabinetry were in place, suddenly the old stockyard fence started feeling a lot less like, oh my goodness, tear it down, make it go away, and a whole lot more like, oh wow, that fence adds so much organic texture, like something you would see at a cozy, resort-inspired retreat. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and return again to the shed window. Now, refreshing the trim with some white paint did clean it up, but the window itself is still a problem. It looked directly into the shed, which meant you could see all the storage and usually the mess inside. I could have just covered it with blinds, but since the window sat right in the center of the feature wall, I decided to turn it into a statement piece instead. My plan was to create a large decorative mirror with reflective window film. So I measured the window pane and cut the film using the convenient grid marks on the paper side. Once cut to size, you can simply peel off the paper backing and apply to a dampened, clean window pane on the interior side of the window using soapy water and the included squeegee. Once applied, the film created a mirror-like finish to the window, blocking the ability to see in, but on the shed side, you could see out and the light continues to come in. And now for the fun part, creating the decorative trim. First, I wanted to create a faux wood base on the aluminum trim, so I painted over the white with a brown base. Next, I took some wood stain and applied a thin, streaky layer over top of that base. For the decorative trim, I'll be using jumbo craft sticks that I also painted with the wood stain. I'll then further shape the ends, then cut the craft sticks in half to create the wood slats part of this design. Once I have all the slats ready, I'll begin applying to the frame of the window, and yes, I'll be using my favorite double-sided nano bonding tape. And no, I have no fears about the long-term hold of this application. I was sold on this technology years ago when it held a wood sign to a brick wall in a hurricane. And I've not doubted it since. And so I'll continue attaching the slats all around the perimeter of the window by first running a strip of the tape, then lining up each slat and pressing it into the tape. And actually, I'm really liking it just as is, as it reminds me of a Pottery Barn dupe I did many years ago. But as you can see, there's a lot of gapping between the slats, so to further finish the look, I'm going to be using strips from a bamboo placemat. But to keep those threads from falling apart, I find I need to paint over the fabric threads with glue first to hold them together. Then I can cut with scissors, or sometimes I like to use a razor to separate. For this design, I'll be cutting the strips so that they contain both a wide strip and the two thin strips to each side. And I will be using the pieces that only have the wide strip later. But basically, once separated, I cut the strips in half, and I'll use glue here to attach the bamboo strips between the wood slats. I'll use clamps and some packing tape to hold the strips in place while the glue dries. Now it's really starting to come together, except for that center part of the window. So for that, I'll go back to those wide part only strips from the placemat and use those to finish off the center strip on the window frame, using glue to attach and then packing tape to hold the bamboo strips in place while the glue dried. And just like that, we have a beautiful statement piece mirror for our feature wall made from our dusty old aluminum shed window, some window film, craft sticks, and a bamboo placemat. And that not only creates a beautiful feature, but also solves our ugly window and visible shed clutter problems. But wait, where did that wood counter come from? Let me explain. Okay, so if you recall, I arranged the Amazon cabinets so that I had 3 short cabinets in the middle with 2 tall cabinets on either side. This configuration creates a natural buffet/countertop type space, and to give the cabinet tops more of a cohesive and intentional finish, I took a couple of wood pieces I had left over from another project, cut them to size, stained and varnished, and then slid into place on top of the cabinets, creating more of an upscale finish to the arrangement. Now, all that's left is decor. So I thought the window/decorative mirror would look great flanked by 2 sconces. I found these at my local thrift shop for, can you believe, 30 cents. They were $3 but marked down by 90%. I wasn't exactly loving the scroll design, but for 30 cents I decided to get them with plans to do some type of overlay on top to cover the scroll. But once the window DIY was done, I kind of like them as is. What do you think? Should I leave them as is or give them a more updated look? Since these are hanging outdoors, I thought it'd be neat to see if there were some type of solar-powered pillar candles available, and our friends at Amazon did not disappoint. Moving on to the countertop below, I wanted a piece to anchor the decor centered below the window. One of my favorite pieces I ever made on this channel was this tabletop centerpiece for my old patio table, which I made from paint sticks and Dollar Tree beads and then topped with recycled bottles and candle votives. It's perfect for long skinny surfaces like my old table or this countertop. But to better fit the vibe I was going for here, I gave the piece a quick color change and freshen with a mix of tan and yellow paints. Then dressed up the sides a little with pieces of the bamboo placemat that I also used to do the window makeover DIY. Then I freshened my choice of recycled bottles and added those back to the top of the piece along with fresh greens and candles. To the left-hand side of that, I added an old vase from the 90s that I flipped in a previous video into this more timely vessel, as they say, again with a little spackle paint and some tea. And then this little cutie on a stand was picked up at Dollar General just recently at their end of season BOGO sale at just $1.50 each. I couldn't DIY or thrift that any cheaper. If you've watched my channel in the past, you know that one of the things I love to do for decor is actually shop my cabinets and put stuff on display that is otherwise taking up precious storage space. Items like ice buckets, drink dispensers, utensil holders, and risers can all do double duty and hide in plain sight as decor when not in use, then be used for their intended purpose when needed. For example, this 3-tier utensil holder is an attractive piece, so why hide it away? And instead of taking up precious storage space when not entertaining, it can be used as a decor piece with a few IKEA plants, which easily pop in, then then pop back out again when needed for utensils. I wanted to add another smaller decor piece in front and opted to use one of my thrifted bangle bracelet pieces. You can get some beautiful bangle bracelets for $1 or $2 at thrift stores, and all you need to do is pair them with a dollar or thrift vase or recycled items like this jar from a previous jar candle and glue the two pieces together with some E6000. They make the best little decorative votives, planters, or vases, but I'm going to go ahead and use this one to make a quick little terrarium with some pebbles from that never-ending bag of stones, and then some pieces of faux succulents stuck in. And that's it! A cute little addition to my countertop decor to balance out this side of the buffet. And then one more thing to finish out the decor in this area. Why, plants, of course! Now, if you regularly watch my channel, you know that a few years ago, due to the terrible drought and equally extreme flash freezes in the winter, most of my real plants went to meet their maker. As a result, I invested in a boatload of artificial plants, which of course were either thrifted or purchased on clearance, mainly through Amazon Warehouse, where you can find some really amazing buys. I bought this secondhand ficus tree years ago at my local thrift store for just $15. It was previously on the porch, but I moved it over here to the left side of the cabinets. On the right side of the cabinets, I placed two of these planters in stands that I've had for years, but recently gave a fresh coat of paint to. Then I added a couple of light-up artificial olive tree branches to one and a small potted palm to the other, both of which I picked up at a discount on Amazon Warehouse. Above the plants, I added back a DIY wall hanging with one of my favorite sayings that I made years ago for this channel. I love it not just for the sentiment, but also because it has a space for adding greenery or flowers, both fresh or artificial. I also wanted to add some greenery to the tops of the cabinets as well, so I took two Dollar Tree planters and I painted them with my favorite spackle paint, which you've seen me do many times on this channel, where I take equal parts Dollar Tree spackle and paint, and in this case Waverly Cashew, and mix together with a little water. And this is after 3 coats of the spackle paint along the outside. Now I just want to take that down a little along the inside, around the top, and in using this for live plants, you definitely want to keep the bottom inside unpainted, but even though I'll be using for fake plants with these, you won't be able to see the inside, so I'll just paint around the top where you see. To give my spackle paint surfaces a little more dimension, I also like to add a grainy top coat, often made from spices. This time I'm using nutmeg, and what I like to do is make a tea of sorts with a little boiling water and the spice. After letting it steep for a little bit, I then paint it onto my spackle paint surface. The nutmeg colored water creates a slightly tinted wash, and the little grains of nutmeg get stuck into the rough surface of the paint. And then here you can see what the finish looks like with the spice wash and without. Once dry, I like to coat with a little spray matte varnish to make sure those little grains stay in place over time. For the plants, I'll be using the greens from this overstuffed basket I picked up at the thrift store for just $6. I was able to remove 2 of the bushy stems from each side of the basket and then placed 1 in each of the planters. And then there's still plenty of greens left in the basket to fluff out and easily fill the basket, which I then added to the 2 planters on the side of the cabinet, which will add a little texture, color, and symmetry to the arrangement. And then here you can see how all the elements come together along our back feature wall. And now moving on to the dining area of the patio, starting with this large floral print rug purchased at, you guessed it, an end of season clearance, as was this lovely wicker dining set. On the tabletop, some pretty place settings sitting on woven texturized placemats purchased for just $1 each at Dollar General's end of summer clearance a few years back. And the succulent centerpiece? Well, that's a DIY, and believe it or not, it also doubles as a tabletop fire pit. Let's see how I made it. This year, I became intrigued with the idea of a tabletop fireplace, and I did find several well-priced models with coupons on Amazon. However, what was not so well priced was the fuel needed to use it. coming in at a whopping $24 per liter bottle, of which you need to use half per 2-hour burn. After a little research, I discovered that some of the sternos, including this product from Sam's, uses a similar type of bioethanol fuel in gel form for just about $1.70 a can, and that gives you a 6-hour burn. So I decided to make my own using recycled candle jars, an old stand from a decor piece I had for many years, some balsa wood panels, some faux succulents, and of course the sterno. To make, I simply gave a little faux wood treatment to the bottom of the base by first painting it with a chocolate brown craft paint, then topping with antique wax. Next, I cut the balsa wood pieces to size, and you can do this with scissors, which is why I love working with them, and then stain the pieces with natural stain. To create a nice base for the moss, I also painted the top of the base with green craft paint. Next, I glued on the short wood pieces with Titebond glue, leaving the faux feet exposed, then clamped and taped into place. Once the short sides were dry, I glued on the long sides, lining up the wood pieces, then weighing them down with some sterno cans until the pieces were dry. Next, I gave the entire piece a couple coats of spar urethane, and then that created a nice little base to hold the recycled candle jars and the succulent arrangement. I placed the jars in, then added some glue to the base and placed some moss on top. Once full, I began adding my faux succulent stems. Once I was happy with that arrangement, I took the sterno, removed the labels, and added those to the jars. Lastly, I just topped the cans with some pebbles from this never-ending bag of stones I picked up at Michael's. And then here you can see the finished project, which not only makes an attractive centerpiece by day, but then lights up the night, providing a glowing ambiance. And it's functional too, as it also can be used to roast marshmallows. So, as we have originally seen, the patio area does have some additional space in this back corner. So why not complete this shabby space with a shabby old potting table? Yes, this poor thing has seen better days, but I think we can give it a little refresh, first by adding a little grass skirt made from a dollar store hula skirt. I make sure to pull the pieces all the way down to create the fullest effect, and then attach the skirt to the table using my favorite double-sided mounting tape. In addition to giving the potting table a little more of a festive and finished look, the skirt also provided some coverage for that storage area underneath, which in turn creates the perfect home for my large cooler. At one time, there was a wood lattice grid which went across the back of this potting table, so the opening made the perfect spot to hang one of my other favorite signs. And then the extra counter space can be super useful in an outdoor area like this for things like food and bar service, or maybe even a TV stand. When not in use, it makes an excellent spot for even more cozy decor. First, I'll anchor the decor in the middle under the sign with this functional citronelle candle that also happens to come in this decorative ceramic pot that I picked up at Sam's Club a few years back for just $5, and yes, of course, at the end of season clearance. To give it a little more character and add some height, I'm going to place it on this aged wood riser, which I typically use when entertaining. And this is actually a DIY I made in my Olive Atelier dupes video, and we'll link that video in the description box if you'd like to check that out. I wanted to again add some greenery to this area, so I picked up this topiary at the thrift store. It definitely had some good bones, as they say, but it was in quite the state. The ceramic pot was solid without any chips or cracks, but whatever the piece was that went here on top was missing, and I'm not really sure how these vines and branches originally attach. Plus, the topiary ball had this weird wiry thick moss with multiple bald spots. But with all the quality materials, I thought if I couldn't figure it out, for $3 I could still dismantle it and use it for parts, and it would still be worth it. So I started by wrapping the small wire around the thicker one, then bent those around and hooked those to the top. I then took 2 of the 3 vines and wrapped those around the thick wire, then kind of worked that third vine into the moss at the bottom. To get that unruly thick moss a little contained, I used some floral pins to pin it down, then gave the ball a little more dimension and covered those ball spots with some glued pieces of a wreath that I got for a bargain basement price on Amazon Warehouse. To replace the top piece, I took a wood finial I had on hand and glued it to the top, then painted that with some sage green paint and topped that with some streaks of antique wax and brown to get a better match to the piece underneath. I did want to lighten both pieces up a bit, and since I didn't have any of the white wax on hand, I used a little white paint mixed with glaze medium to create a light hue over top. To further lighten the piece, I used my cornstarch hack to create a white patina on the terracotta pot, then set that in place with light spritzes of matte clear coat. I set the entire piece on another little DIY riser, and that gave it a little more height and further softened the coloring. For the shelf above, I took 3 Dollar Tree faux succulents and gave the pots a quick coat of ivory spray paint and added the trio to the shelf above. For the right-hand side of the potting table, I'll be using the thrifted glass beverage decanter that we use for parties, and I'll again add some artificial greens. And I was able to get these again on clearance at Amazon Warehouse. But before I place the greens in, I'm going to add some fairy lights I just got at the end of season sale from Dollar General. I'll run the wire out the back and place the controls on the tabletop behind the decanter. By day, it finishes off the decor for the converted potting table, and by night, it adds a little sparkly, twinkling light. And we may have saved the best for last, since lighting is actually one of the best, easy, and inexpensive ways to create amazing outdoor entertaining spaces. From fairy lights to path lights to cafe lights to plant lights to pool lights to curtain lights. Oh my goodness, by adding one or more of these, you can easily create a cozy ambiance and magically transform your space. And guess what, friends? They all go on sale at the end of season. Now, let's take a look at some of the lighting options I've gone with. First up, I just love to light up plants and bushes. So in addition to the fairy lights illuminating the stems in the drink decanter, I've also added them to the thrifted ficus tree on the left-hand side of the cabinets. If you recall, on the right-hand side of the cabinets, the olive branch stems I placed in the first planter already had solar-powered lights attached. For the other planter, I decided to use these firefly lights. I just loved these when I first saw them on Amazon, and so when they went on a lightning sale, I grabbed them. Another long-term favorite of mine are curtain fairy lights. I think they make such a wonderful understated backdrop in almost any space. Another option I just love is cafe lights. They just make me happy. They're so festive, and I don't know, they just kind of make you feel like you're on vacation or something. And bonus, they are also solar powered, so we didn't have to worry about running any electric to the source when hanging. And lastly, we have the ultimate in creating warm and cozy ambiance, candle and firelight. From the solar-powered pillars on the sconces we saw earlier, to the flickering votives on the server centerpiece, to the bug-controlling citronella candle crock on the converted potting table, to the DIY tabletop fireplace succulent centerpiece. And then you can see how it all comes together along with the battery, electric, and solar-powered lights to create the perfect backdrop to host an amazing party or just an intimate gathering for family or a few friends. And then here's a look at how everything came together by day, and keep in mind that everything you see here was DIY'd with inexpensive materials or by refurbished older items I already had. If purchased, the items were from thrift stores or bought at clearance sales at a deep discount. So as mentioned at the beginning of this video, it's completely possible to create an elevated, organic, resort-inspired outdoor retreat at home and on a budget, finding the value in what you already have or acquiring new finds at deep discounts. Well, I hope you found some inspiration to reimagine your own space. And if you enjoyed the video, please remember to give a thumbs up. And thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.